Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year's 2025. Let's go, boys. Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's time to talk about quick shifter, specifically the auto blipper I recently put on my bike. It is, without a doubt, the best blipper I've ever used, and it goes for upshifts and downshifts. It is the Translogic brand. Now, my motorcycle, being a 2016 model, the R1M, already had upshifts, clutchless upshifts from factory, and they were smooth as butter. They were fast. By no means did I feel like they really needed to be upgraded. But my bike was already equipped with an IRC quick shifter with auto blipper from the individual who owned my bike before me 6,000 miles ago. Anyways, the IRC was great. It did its job at downshifts, clutchless downshifts, which my bike model year did not have. But the sensor started dying out, and so it was no longer clutchless downshifting the way I wanted to. And when it would fuck up, it would trigger a check engine light and would completely cut off any clutchless downshifts attempts. So instead of just replacing the O2 sensor or the sensor that the quick shifter needed, I decided to go with the Translogic blipper for up and downshifts, as it came with two separate ECU modules to operate, one for upshifts, one for downshifts. And obviously during install, we switched the links to make the GP shift possible. Instead of 1 down and 5 up, it's 1 up and 5 down. In other words, your shifting is completely reversed. Normally when you get into first gear, you kick down on the shifter. Well, now you kick up on the shifter and you kick down for second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth. So it's completely opposite to what I had been used to. Completely opposite to the first bike I've had. Completely opposite to what I got used to on this bike. Completely opposite to every single bike I've ridden. Most people are terrified of this. They think they cannot relearn the shifting process. And I will say that you get used to it a lot quicker than even I anticipated. Yes, for the first couple days, it's going to be weird. It's not so weird after getting past first gear, but kicking up to get into first gear was definitely a mindfuck for a while. Sometimes I will find myself kicking down, getting in second gear, but I will catch it. So there is a learning curve. But once you do get past that first week, it really does become muscle memory ingrained. It becomes second nature. I never felt myself really messing up past a fucking month. And now it's honestly weird whenever I hop onto a bike, my buddy's bikes, who are traditional shifting with 1 down, 5 up. It's mind fucking for me, dude. I don't understand why bikes naturally come like these. There's a reason GP shifter is used in racing. I'm a big fan. Specifically when roll racing, kicking down to shift gears, it's so much smoother than having to kick up. It feels second nature. So like I said, once you get past the learning curve, which is not that bad, everyone makes it seem like you can't fucking learn it, dude. I call fucking cap. You can absolutely learn it. You can absolutely be shifting like it's second nature within a month, dude. I'd say within less than a month, but everyone learns at a different pace. It depends how much you ride your bike. For a while, this was a bike I used to ride all the time. Not so much anymore, but for a while, I rid it a lot, so I learned very fast. And there's a lot of pros and cons about GP shifting, but I'm not going to give you the brochures. All I can say is that it's for sure the move. It's revolutionary to how I shift the bike. It feels way better. I find myself missing gears a lot less. It's almost impossible to miss a gear now. It's like, dude, you can't buck up in my book. Anyways, I want to compare the Translogic shifter to the IRC quick shifter. Both are excellent shifters, but I do think that Translogic takes it up a notch. Translogic does offer just downshifts or just upshifts or both, and I did go with both. I did replace the factory quick shifting with the Translogic quick shifter for upshifts, and I gotta say, there is actually a noticeable difference between upshifts. Even though my main purpose was to focus on downshifts, we're gonna cover the upshifts right quick. So as far as the factory upshifts, I'd say is the smoothest out of all the quick shifters I've used for upshifts. So the factory upshifts are buttery smooth. They're not as harsh on the system, it seems. They're very, very smooth, but they're not the fastest. So you gotta realize, do you want smoothness or do you want speed? I personally am a speed kind of guy. The Translogic shifter is not as smooth sometimes when shifting. It can be pretty damn smooth at times, but you have to really be racing the bike to get that kind of smoothness. When you're normally cruising or whatnot, it's not the smoothest shifter compared to the factory shifter. Now, on my IRC module, I didn't have upshifts, I only had downshifts, so I can't even compare it to the IRC. But what I can say is the Translogic upshifts are far fucking superior in speed. They do feel harsher on the system, but they're far superior. Spec-wise, you're shifting basically as fast as a dual clutch. So that is a big pro. Now, on the downshifts, the IRC module I had was already failing. It was already falling apart. But when it did run right, it was okay. I wasn't particularly impressed with it. But again, it's not a fair fucking comparison. And obviously factory, these bikes don't have downshifts from factory. The 17 Plus model bikes do, so I can't compare it to those. But what I can say is the Translogic Auto Blipper is phenomenal, does the job crystal clear every time, smooth, buttery performance, love it. Zero complaints, it feels extremely smooth and never feels harsh. It feels like it always knows what gear to be in or RPM to match for that gear. Even when braking really hard, it knows exactly how to match it appropriately. So I never felt any complaints to it like I did with the IRC. But again, the IRC sensor was already dying. So overall, I'm very pleased with the Translogic up and downshift kits. It was two separate modules. It was a pain in the ass of an install. It was one of the most difficult installs I've seen my mechanics, and yes, I mean mechanics, go through. So anything to do with wires, hooking it up to the harness, a whole lot, is very dangerous. You want to make sure you do it right. So here's a fair warning. Don't get no cheap ass mechanic or do it yourself if you don't really know what you're doing. This is the kind of thing that you don't want fucking up in the middle of a corner. One of my mechanics said, if this thing fails in the midst of a corner and upshifts abruptly or downshifts abruptly, it can unbalance the bike and cause a wreck. He's seen it before. So this is one thing I mentioned that you should do it right. Now, the system ran phenomenal out of the box. They say that you need a dyno tune it, which I did go to a dyno. The dyno guy looked at it. He barely tweaked anything. It was already perfect out of the box. And so that's one thing that you don't have to really worry. If you're worried about installing it and you think, shit, I need to take it to a dyno, I need to dial it in right, most of the bike's already perfect. Now my bike was already modified. It already has an exhaust, it already has velocity stacks, it already has a drop-in filter, and it still ran completely fine with the tune. So it does come out of the box pretty good. So that's one good thing I can say. And the Translogic also comes with a warm-up module. It's a button that you install near your startup button, and when you hold it down for 3 seconds, it'll rev your bike to appropriate RPM to warm it up during cold starts. It sounds pretty fucking dope, and I do find myself using that often. The warm-up is very nice. I turn on the bike, I hold down the button, I let the bike rev for a little bit. It does a series of quick little revs. Within 2 minutes, I go out there, get on my bike, and it's at a pretty good operating temperature. so I do find myself using that quite often. And as far as racing wise, I do think it shifts faster. I don't think I know it shifts faster. I know the downshifts are perfect, so in racing settings, Translogic really does perform phenomenal. In day-to-day riding, obviously, like I said, the upshifts from factory did feel smoother 9 out of 10 times. Translogic can get that smooth. You can get that same smooth, almost like you didn't shift feeling, but occasionally you feel like a harsher shift because, again, it is shifting a lot harder. It is shifting a lot more aggressive. It would be the equivalent if you take a dual clutch system and you put it on track mode where it's shifting very fucking aggressively, and then you put it on eco mode or normal mode where it shifts a lot more smooth. I've seen this with the GTI. I've seen this with Porsches. I've seen it with a 10-speed Mustang that on track mode is shifting so aggressively that it even chirps the tires. So since this is aggressive all the time, it's not going to be as smooth, but it's not that bad, dude. Like, now, many months later, because I've owned this for quite some time now, at least 6 months, I don't feel like it's just harsh. It just does feel different than the stock one. It does shift stronger, harsher, so in a racing setting, it may cut down some milliseconds in between shifts. And that's ultimately why I went with both systems, the up and down. I didn't just focus on the downshift, because I wanted to get all the performance for the bike. I wanted to make this bike my real racing vehicle, and it did just that. So, to recap the video, the Translogic up and down shifter are amazing. I recommend them 10 out of 10. The IRC was okay. I can't really rate it too properly since the sensor was dying. When it ran right, it did okay, but it would get sudden glitches. When I would press down to downshift, sometimes it would blip the throttle too hard and launch me forward, which I felt was quite dangerous. Since I paired it to the stock upshifter, the upshift was always fine. On Translogic, it's just the upshifts and downshifts are superior to anything I've felt before. They can be a little harsher, a little less smooth, but sometimes they're buttery smooth. It depends how you're riding the bike. I'd say you have to be getting on throttle pretty okay force to make it smooth. If you're barely on throttle and you upshift, it can feel a little weird. As far as the GP shifter is the superior way to shift, you should always be shifting 1 up, 5 down. It feels far better in corners, especially at extreme lean angles, to just kick down or kick up to downshift or upshift. So overall, I'm very pleased with the systems. GP shifter the way to go. Translogic, highly recommended. Even if you have a newer bike that can already downshift and upshift by itself, Translogic just takes it 1 notch up. It shifts faster at the cost of smoothness. Bye, ladies and gentlemen.